news, and he has excellent guests on that get into all kinds of things concerning Christianity, current events, biblical prophecy, and it's a very interesting show. For those of you who don't listen regularly, I would bookmark that and check it out when you have time.
I asked him to come on this week, and he never answered me, so I've got to follow up with him on that. It's just I don't know. We got to talking about something different, which, by the way, reminds me, I'm going to be on Coast to Coast tonight, just for the news segment, Coast to Coast with George Norrie. So I'm talking about the London Olympics, the possibility there with respect to, everyone's expecting some sort of attack, supposedly, and to get my thoughts. Truly, we've got to talk about the London Olympics in addition to, of course, what happened in Colorado last week. We've been deliberately silent on this issue because we don't get into the, look, the first reports, the fog of battle, the fog of an incident like this, there are always inconsistencies and incorrect reports, but that doesn't mean we don't pay attention to them. We pay attention to what's being reported, and then we reserve comment until after we've had the opportunity to analyze what's going on, and that's the way we handle all of, unless, of course, it's a situation of national or international significance. For example, we reported in real time last week about Syria, but this is a little different, and we're going to be getting into some of this, some of the oddities, some of the irregularities with respect to this shooting. And that said, too, I was talking to Julia McLeod this weekend, Canada Free Press, and just about this. So we have to talk, and we. Folks, look, we're interested in your thoughts as well. This is a caller-driven show. Call in 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839.
And as a result of the shooting in Colorado, we had Mayor Bloomberg on talking about this morning on one of the local mainstream news outlets.
Both the president and Governor Romney have expressed sympathy to the people in Colorado this morning. What else would you like to hear from them?
Somebody's got to do something about this, and this requires, and particularly in a presidential year, the candidates for President of the United States to stand up and once and for all say, yes, they feel terrible, yes, it's a tragedy, yes, we have great sympathy for the families, but it's time for this country to do something. And that's the job of the President of the United States. And I don't know what they're going to do, but I think it's incumbent on them to tell us specifically, not just in broad terms. Governor Romney, when he was governor of Massachusetts, actually passed a ban on assault weapons. And President Obama, when he came into office in 2008, said he would reinstitute the federal ban on assault weapons, and the governor has apparently changed his views, and the president has spent the last 3 years trying to avoid the issue, or if he's facing it, I don't know anybody that's seen him face it, and it's time for both of them to be held accountable. We spend all our time talking about tax returns and gaffes and things like that. This is one of those issues, along with a handful of others, that really matter to the American public. It matters to the future of our country. It matters to you and me and to our children and grandchildren. And it's time, I think, that we hold them accountable and say, okay, you want our votes. What are you going to do?
And that was Mayor Bloomberg talking about Romney and Obama taking action on gun control. A little bit later in the broadcast, we're going to air a BBC interview with an anti-gun control advocate who really...
Wait a minute, anti-gun control advocate, in other words...
He's for arming the people, letting people have the Second Amendment, and he really destroys any points made by this BBC reporter, and it is worth the listen. But for right now, we'll hold off that interview. And also, I have a special 1 minute and 20-second clip we'll play at the break entitled Why We Have the Second Amendment. And it's real quick, and it looks like it was from a college lecture, and it's definitely also worth a listen to. But right now we're going to go to the phones. Somebody, a friend of the show, who wants to weigh in on this issue with Colorado, the gun control, etc.
This is now, it's my understanding, this is John from Braveheart Radio. Is that right?
Yes, it is. John.
Braveheart Radio, folks. Listen to that. That's once a week, every Saturday night.
6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
That's right. And the website, well, we'll have him give out the website. John, welcome to the Hagmann and Ahgmann Report.
Hi, guys, and hello, listeners. How are you tonight?
I'll speak for them. They're doing well. They're a little hot, but they're doing well.
I want to, first and foremost, I want to give a very public apology to Joe because I was about an hour and a half through your Friday evening program, and I was still at work, and I texted him. I don't even remember what I texted him about now, but he immediately replied back with, "Hi, John, call me." So I called him, and I was in a particularly foul mood. And,
none of us get that way, by the way. That's all right. Go on.
And I unloaded on him. Just, not at him personally, of course. I vented. And
was this on air? I mean, did I miss something? Was this on air?
No, this was earlier today.
No, this was earlier. Yeah, this was earlier today.
Okay.
And we talked for about 20 minutes, and he had to get off the phone and go and call you, I guess. And I finished listening to your program from Friday, and I got to the part where you read that email from that father, and I felt so bad. And I'm like, who the hell am I to bitch about things? Excuse my language, please. Who am I to complain about things that, yeah, they directly affect me, but I can't do anything about directly right now? When this guy just lost his son and probably had the best summer of his life, and it was all I could do to not break down right there, man. So thank you for that, and Joe, I apologize.
Not a problem.
Wow.
I get that attitude from my dad at least once a day, so.
That's true. That's true.
Well, thank you, John.
Well, John, that's nice for you to call in and do that. Only if we had the tape of that session, that would make for good radio. John, you got some time to spend with us for a few minutes, because you know what?
Sure.
I want to ask you. Okay, now you're on top of things.
I try to be. Thank you.
Okay. No, I mean you are. Look, we listen to your program, and we've been blessed by being able to be on your program as guests. Now, paybacks. But what are your thoughts on this Colorado shooting? I want to know what you're thinking about this, because I've got some. I'm holding back some things, but just I want to get your take on this.
Well, first and foremost, ain't it convenient a week out from the Arms Trade Treaty signing? That's first.
Right.
Second, did you see the mugshot of the guy? Or did you see the picture of him in court today?
Yes.
He looks like Gerald Loeffner from Tucson. Not physically, not in physical appearance, but he just had that really unnerving smirk on his face, and he is dead inside. You could see it in his eyes. His eyes are bottomless pits. And the two incidents parallel each other in the fact that they are so random and so meaningless, but they are going to have, and especially this latest one in Aurora, Colorado, are going to have far-reaching national implications that we haven't even seen yet. We haven't even thought of yet.
Explain that statement. If you know, is that that might be kind of like a gut feeling of yours, but when you say far-reaching implications, I take it you mean with respect to the freedom to own handguns and legally and that type of thing?
There is a very big deal being made of the fact that, aside from his firearms, he got all of his ammunition and accessories via mail order, or newfangled way over the internet.
Right.
And you can order just about anything you want. You can even order firearms over the internet. And a very, very big deal is being made of that fact. So it's my guess, educated guess, that you're going to see a crackdown on mail order and internet order accessories such as the body armor and the ammunition, the magazines that he had. It's stuff that has not even really been thought of yet.
Okay, well, let me just guide you through a couple of questions here. Number one, and folks, I'm interested in all of your opinions, and if you want to call in again, 661-244-9839. But John, let me ask you right up front: do you believe this man acted alone?
No, I do
Why?
not. Because the door that he was supposed to go in was an emergency exit, and I've heard reports that he kicked the door in. There's no way. Hulk Hogan could not kick that door in.
There was also reports of somebody opening the door too.
That's what I've been hearing. Is there's a lot of reports of an unknown subject that opened the door and immediately left the theater.
Okay, but could that not have been? I mean, picture yourself at a midnight showing and somebody's kind of trying to get in the door and knocking or whatever. What's your reaction?
Well,
be to get up and maybe open the door to
coming from someone that's ridden in the trunk of a car into a drive-in, it's entirely possible that someone heard him banging on the door and said, I'll let this guy in. Why not? And that's God's honest truth. I have gone to a drive-in in the trunk of a car. But
what was it, a 71 Nova? Okay.
I forget what it was, but it was big and roomy.
All right.
But in all seriousness, yes, it is entirely possible
that
someone just let him in because, hey, there's somebody outside wants in, let's let him in.
All right.
But I really think there's more about this than we will never know. And it's the same thing with Gerald Loeffner from Tucson. There are things about that we will never know, and we can suspect, we can speculate all day long. But I look at, although I don't necessarily believe in coincidences, I look at them and determine whether it's a coincidence or not. And 99% of the time, I decide that it's not. And
right.
This is one of those cases that just is too convenient, too easy, and the guy played it by the book. He threw in a couple of smoke grenades or possibly even flashbangs, and disoriented the crowd. And if you've seen in some reports, the crowd thought it was part of the movie,
right.
Part of the show. And
yeah.
He started targeting people that had gotten up and were trying to get out before he started targeting people that were still sitting in their seats. He was armored from head to toe, had quite the weapon loadout from what I can tell. AR-15 with a couple of 100-round drums, a 12-gauge shotgun, and two Glock 40 caliber pistols.
And he also waited to be captured, from what I understand, after he was done. And he had his apartment booby-trapped with explosives, according to the police, who went there to disarm them.
Incendiary-type devices that were tripwired. If we were to believe the official reports, but yeah, so some of the things that bother me, John, and I'll tell you this: number one, and as crass as this sounds, think about this. With the arsenal that he had, there were only 12 deaths. Now, thank God there were only 12, and too bad there had to be 12. But it seems like he could have done more damage. That's number one. And number two, it bothers me that he walked out, and because throughout history, I mean, if you look at these nut jobs that have shot people and done things, all we have to do is take a look. For example, back in 1984, James Oliver Huberty, he killed 21 people in McDonald's, wounded 19 others, but he was shot by SWAT. Okay, June 18th, 1990, James Powell, General Motors, killed 10, wounded 4 more before killing himself. 91, Killeen, Texas, and remember that Lubby's cafeteria. Yeah, George Hennard killed 23 people, wounded 20 others before killing himself. Klebold Harris, at Columbine, they killed themselves as well. And so on. Everyone kills themselves. Virginia Tech, he killed 32 people, then killed himself. This guy walks out.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this, and it's a very interesting pattern that you're putting together. You have this guy. He walks out and surrenders. Gerald Loeffner was. I'm not sure of the circumstances of his takedown, but he was captured alive and uninjured, and also the Muslim
gun jammed.
guy. What's that?
Yeah, Loeffner's gun jammed. You're right, Joe.
Yeah, he couldn't get the other clip in.
And then he got wrestled to the ground.
And then you got the Muslim major down at Fort Hood. He was captured alive.
Right.
So you're absolutely right in drawing a pattern here. How is it that all of a sudden, when leading up to these events, every suspect in one form or another got dead, now all of a sudden they're surviving, unharmed. And again, I'm going to go back to the appearance of Holmes today.
Right.
Just absolutely, he was void of anything. And
well, so some say he was sedated, and I've never, outside of the Manson clan, well, not even then, but I've never heard of any, somebody being sedated for their hearing, for their arraignment. But normally, okay, and especially in this case, I wouldn't imagine that. But you're right, man. You're right. The appearance is odd, isn't it?
It is extremely odd and disturbing. And a lot of people talk about MK Ultra, and I myself have not done enough research to either confirm or deny, in my own mind, any involvement of that, which I know that MK Ultra did exist. It's been admitted to. But whether or not it had anything to do with these latest events, I can't say, and probably never will be able to say. But it's just awful weird the way things are transpiring now. And the outcomes are similar. You have one crazed gunman that kills a lot of people, and he is alive the following business day to make an appearance in court, whereas that has not happened very often beforehand. It's a very, very good a good pattern you drew, Doug. I hadn't come at it from that angle, but you're absolutely right.
Well, you know, on the other hand, though, John, what people might say to that is, and Joe and I were discussing the possibilities back and forth. If this was a setup, for example, you know, wouldn't you think that he would be taken out? Having done the job, somebody would have taken him out, shot him, whatever. But, you know, Sirhan is still in prison.
Exactly.
Okay? So that argument kind of goes out the window.
The first rule of assassination is kill the assassin.
Right.
But everybody knows that rule now, so it becomes a bit too obvious. I think that went out with Lee Harvey Oswald. If you
Good
believe
point.
that Oswald actually killed Kennedy, which I don't, but
yeah, I don't believe. Look, I'll tell you what. We've talked to Judith Very Baker, Oswald's mistress, and Oswald did have a mistress in New Orleans. And if you believe the accounts of Judith Very Baker, even her sons, I think two of her sons discounted her, but she wrote this extremely engaging book. And folks, if you have a chance, you've got to pick it up and read it. It'll rock your mental world. But anyway, yeah, I don't believe Kennedy or Oswald fired a shot. Or if he did, he did it for a different purpose, but not at the motorcade. But anyway, you're right. But you're right. You probably didn't expect to be a guest on our program. You probably just called in to talk, and I certainly don't want to keep you. Actually,
Joe gave me kind of a heads up today, so, and I'm more than happy to come in and share my thoughts with you guys and your audience. I have no problem at all doing that. I enjoy it.
Well, I think Joe, and I think you'd agree. I mean, you're in the same business we are, to the extent that we're trying to get the truth out there, and trying to educate the public, and trying to say, look, if something's not right, it's not right. We need to tell people this and give them a heads up as to what the end result is, or what the objectives are. And I think in this case, there's so much not right with this that we've got to look at this a little bit differently. So, that's why. So we call this brainstorming. You know, what bothers me. Yeah, look, John, what bothers me is this too. Yeah, the wildfires. Did Obama go to Colorado or anywhere else to talk to the people about the wildfires?
Not the wildfires, not the drought. Not anything.
Okay.
I mean, the only other thing, the only other disaster that he has made an appearance at was the Gulf oil spill.
That was going to be my next question. I couldn't recall if he did go down there or not.
Yeah, he went down there and put all kinds of blame on BP and subsequently shut down exploration in the Gulf. And that's, partly why we're paying $3.50 a gallon for gasoline. But again, another topic for another show.
Indeed. Yeah, Joe, you've been rather quiet there. Joe, I think maybe it's time. I don't know how many people have seen this photograph, but I'm not even sure of the provenance of the photograph. But you had showed a photograph of the back of the theater.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
That was released. I'm not sure where I grabbed it from, but there was a photograph of the back of the theater and a blood trail out the back. And I'm looking for the link right now.
Did you see that photograph?
Yes, I did. Joe sent it to me, and I opened it up as soon as I got home from work today. And wow,
okay.
I didn't know that any of the victims had escaped through that door. Obviously they did, because the shooter was unhurt. The alleged shooter, innocent until proven guilty. I'm correcting myself here. The alleged shooter was unharmed, so that can only come from victims. So,
okay, well, let me rock your world and the listeners' world, folks. I believe in the chat room. Joe, did you put up a photograph or a link to the photo?
I just posted it right now.
Okay. And John, you're familiar with the photo I'm talking about. But
yes.
let me just say this. I'm going to change your thoughts on a few things. That is a blood trail. Based on my analysis, and again, I don't like to work off photographs, especially ones that are of dubious provenance or I can't authenticate. But let's just say that is true. That's a blood trail not going out of the theater. That's a blood trail going into the theater.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I know that you're something of an expert on blood spatter patterns. So please expand on that. I'm very curious to hear.
Well, folks, and those involved in the, or those who are in the chat room, please click on that photograph, the link, and if we can keep that link up, or put it back up again. Okay, I am certified in the forensic discipline of blood spatter analysis, and I attended the Laboratory of Forensic Science back in 2002, and I've kept my certification up since then. But if you look at that, number one, that blood trail is arterial spurting. That's unquestionably, or that much I can tell. It's arterial spurting. And blood stains that result when, we'll say, blood strikes a surface. Now, it depends on the surface, and I suspect that's concrete, and not a smooth, but somewhat, like a normal concrete would be. It's not smooth, but it's not like, gravel. You are able to tell the directionality of the individual by the patterns the blood stains leave. Okay, from a 90-degree angle to a 10-degree angle to whatever. Now, it's interesting because what I noted, and again, I don't know how much is left out of the right side of that photograph, but that really doesn't matter. It appears that the blood spatter, an artery was, whoever shed that blood, an artery was breached at the right-hand side of that image. Okay, so whether somebody was shot, stabbed, or whatever outside of that back theater, right at the first blood spatter spot, that is indicative of an arterial spurt. And it is going into the theater as opposed to out of the theater, or toward the theater back door. And then to the left of the patrol car, ahead of the patrol car, it stops. The spurting stops. And then there's a darker pool, which tells me that perhaps someone at that point, most likely because of the lack of more blood there on the surface, it tells me that somebody probably somehow stopped the spurting at that point. They didn't fall. In other words, the victim, whose blood that belongs to, did not fall and lay there. And
Can I clarify something for the listeners really quick, please?
Sure.
For the listeners that don't know, you mentioned arterial flow because it spurts. From my medical background, arterial blood, when you're bleeding from an artery, it does spurt because it comes out with your heartbeat.
Correct.
Venous blood is more of an oozing variety or a slow run, but arterial blood will actually spurt with your heartbeat. That's how EMTs and doctors can take your pulses, because they put their fingers over your artery and they can feel the pulse of your heartbeat through that artery. And also arterial blood is a bright red because it's freshly oxygenated.
Correct.
Whereas venous blood is a very dark red, almost a maroon, because it is oxygen depleted. And I just wanted to throw that in there for the listeners that might not understand.
So, okay, we're in agreement that this is arterial spurting then.
It looks it to me. Now that you've brought it up, and I am no expert on blood spatter, but I've seen In my time, I've seen enough, and
yeah.
It looks to me like the individual is walking at an even pace, and there is at the what would be the back, or I'm sorry, the front of each step is pooled blood, and then out in front of that there are spots.
That's the cast off. That's called cast off. Okay.
Yes.
In this case, I mean, one can argue that. Well, no, I mean, I shouldn't say that. That's cast off. Period. That's indicates forward direction, and you know, well, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm not going to get into the real. I mean, you can get into wave cast off and such, but I mean, the bottom line is the direction of travel certainly indicates from right to left in that image, which would mean that whoever was walking, crawling, or being carried even perhaps, you know, was going in toward the doorway. And again, I don't know when that happened. It could have happened, you know, who knows when that happened. But certainly that's an oddity in my book. And how it stops is, it can be explained, but it certainly hasn't been. And I don't, you know, certainly I don't know. I mean, but this is one thing that does not comport with the original narrative or the official narrative.
Boy, it was shocking to me when Joe sent me this picture to see all of that blood coming out of the door that the shooter entered through. I did not expect that.
I don't really.
Let me tell you, this was made part of the narrative because Obama gave a speech about a girl named Stephanie and Allison, and how she was shot in the neck and came out back for help with her friend. Her friend helped her, but it doesn't make sense because the gunman was caught out back. Out there, and why would you go out there if that's where the danger is coming from? Why would you go out the door that the danger came from? You would want to run away from the danger. So why would, first of all, Obama bring that up in his speech, and second of all, it just doesn't make sense. But it does make sense. This is a different picture, I guess, than I saw earlier, or there are like some pink sandals down there. I don't know.
I couldn't tell what those were, actually, so I was looking at the blood more than anything else.
Is that a police car in the picture that's parked there?
No.
Oh, it's not?
Like it. No. It looks like some kind of Mazda, maybe. And if you notice, that back door only props open from the outside.
Right.
Or you open it from the inside, it only opens through the outside way. And that's how most movie theaters are. You can only open the doors from the inside, so you can't sneak in from the outside.
There's absolutely no question that door was opened for him to get in, because as a firefighter, I can tell you it takes a lot of brute force and a lot of saw blades to cut through a steel door like that.
Well, now the official narrative was that he came in, he purchased a ticket, and then left the theater, perhaps in between propping that door open, which if they have security at all, one would think that the security would, some bell or some, annoying ring, inside the surveillance area would be,
Every emergency exit door I have ever seen has a big sign on it, big white sign with big red letters. Do not open, alarm will sound.
Have you ever tested that?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I've done it in hotels and such. I've never heard anything go off.
And at movie theaters. I mean, nothing recently, but those, I've never heard an alarm go off opening the back door of a movie theater.
No, that doesn't mean that the signal wasn't sent to some, centralized, some surveillance command post inside the multiplex or whatever, but I've never heard anything audible. And I certainly haven't jumped.
And if the one question that I have is, if he went and opened that door and then walked back out and around and came back in that door, why didn't somebody see that? We've heard a lot about this in the last 3 days. Why hasn't somebody come forward and said that?
It's a good point. Well, yeah, because I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure, but I would suspect that you open that door, there's going to be some sort of light that would come in, or it would be noticeable from somebody sitting.
Somebody is going to notice it.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And okay. Now, have you heard this, John? And Joe, I didn't ask you this, and it was almost deliberate I didn't ask you this because I wanted to see if what your research had shown. Channel 9 out of Denver. Let me just double check my notes here. One of the TV stations out of Denver had reported this had reported the arrest, or this named the suspect as Muhammad. Initially, at 3 o'clock in the morning, they named the suspect as Muhammad Ahgmann, I believe it was, or Ahgmann, initially. Did you hear about that?
No.
I have not heard about that.
Okay, and then they quickly retracted that, and for a while there was like a retraction on the website of the TV station. But don't forget, this was like at 3 o'clock local time, Denver. And first reports are often wrong. So it was interesting to see that and then not see that anymore.
A counterpoint to that, Doug, is first reports are as well often correct, and I cite Oklahoma City in 1995 as an example. The reporting in the first hour had two or three, I think, Middle Eastern men involved, along with Timothy McVeigh. That's point number one. And point number two, the initial reporting had several explosive devices inside the building. And after the first hour or so, those items were scrubbed from the reporting completely.
Point taken. Yeah, point taken. So, you're right. You are correct in that. Yeah. And, for new listeners, Joe and I did look the John Doe number 2 of Oklahoma City, Middle Eastern man of Iraqi origin in the eyeballs. And then we can tell you that he had the same look as Holmes here. There's nobody home, the eyes being the window of the soul. But that said, and this was an investigation conducted 7 years after Oklahoma City, or 8 years or 9 years maybe. But yeah, so okay, yeah. So
there's definite.
There's stuff wrong. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was just going to say there are all kinds of anomalies with this shooting. I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of it, really, the real truth, like most things that happen, which is a crime in itself, or it should be. We are entitled to the truth, to know what goes on. And I guess, without having any real evidence to say it was this way or, that way, I'm going to just leave it open-ended and not put any expectations in my mind. It could be this guy's a patsy. It could be this guy did it. It could be.
Well, I think he did. I think he did it. I think that there's enough forensic evidence and enough eyewitness evidence that he did it. But don't forget too, he was also involved in the neuroscience program.
Yeah, apparently he dropped out, from what I understand. Right. Yeah, I just learned that tonight from our good buddies in the chat room.
Oh, okay.
And
so,
this guy was a smart guy, and I know there's a thin line between real genius and insanity sometimes, but
just look at me.
To plan this, to do this, I don't know. It just seems so convenient with the Small Arms Treaty coming up. We see over and over again, as someone commented in the chat room, Terry. Every time something big about Obama's birth comes out, something else happens, and maybe that's a coincidence, maybe not. Who knows at this point? Our government is so corrupt and criminal that we don't know the lengths and depths that they go. We probably underestimate it most of the time.
A friend of mine brought up a very good point, and this friend, guys, I have a very close, tight circle of friends around the country that I've been talking with for the better part of 4 years now. We talk every night on Skype, and we analyze the news and look for things that aren't easily seen, and that. He asked a very pointed and very direct and very simple question. How did this unemployed medical or science school dropout afford the apartment that he was living in? And this friend of mine did the math, anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000 worth of equipment. How did he afford it?
Yeah. You know, as a normal guy, you know, as a normal family man, I struggle to pay my bills. Everyone, I'm sure, listening struggles to pay their bills. And here's a guy that's got an arsenal.
He was a college student studying for his PhD. He could have got grants and then dropped out of school. I mean, there's a number of ways he could have, worked the college system to get money or his field of profession. But hopefully they won't investigate these ends to the truth, at least. But I mean, there's so much disinformation about this going on. We played the clips of the guy from ABC saying he was related to a Tea Party group. It's just a never-ending nonsense train of disinformation from the beginning, it seems. But the real issue is this happened. This is being used to push gun control, and now we're going to have to deal with that on top of everything else that's going on. So,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said at the very beginning when I called in, isn't it convenient? Isn't the timing convenient? And I will reiterate, there are no coincidences.
Yeah, that's just it. The timing of this, and what is not being said by this administration bothers me more than what is being said by this administration. I know that Obama's getting heat for not exploiting this. Openly exploiting this, which makes me wonder what he's up to. Because at least if he would say something or do something, I would know, kind of get a feeling where he's going with this.
Yeah.
But the silence on this is pretty deafening for me. I mean that's my. I just don't trust this guy. Okay, I mean we know.
Well,
look,
yeah, he was all over the Zimmerman Martin thing. And all he's done so far with this is, offer condolences and a prayer.
Yeah. Well,
so,
and the other thing too, John, let me ask you this: now, if you had a legal concealed carry weapons permit, and this is awful. I mean, look, this involves speculation, and none of us were there inside the theater. I don't know, but if you had a legal carry permit and you were in that theater, what are the chances of you being able to react and take this guy down?
Well, I do have a concealed carry permit, and I don't get out of bed in the morning without my gun.
Okay.
And I have been trained. I would have dropped him like a sack of potatoes.
Even with the body armor?
Well, all I'm going to say, without sounding too braggadocious, is yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah.
I am a very skilled shot with a handgun.
All right.
And I'll leave it at that.
But I'm wondering, too, if there were any, and this is a serious question, if there was anybody in that theater with a handgun.
Well,
it was a gun-free zone. They weren't allowed to have handguns.
This is a perfect segue into something that I really wanted to get into, and I really wanted to say.
Well, go for it.
Cinemark Theaters, which is what this was, has a standing no firearms policy. Eric Hayes just put in the chat room in big letters, gun-free zone. We have a Cinemark theater here in our area.
Right.
And I'm sure you guys know where it's at. over the last several years, I've been to a few movies there, and I have never, not once, ever gone in unarmed.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, okay, with the exception of, obviously, like grade school or something like that, when an establishment posts a gun-free zone sign, I look at that like, these idiots that post nuclear-free zone, like, okay, what does that mean? Okay, but anyway, that said, I'm not, look, by me going or you going into a theater that says, this is a gun-free zone, if you're caught, let's say you spill, popcorn on the floor and you reach down to pick it up and somebody sees that you're concealing a weapon and they call the usher or something and you're caught with a gun inside this theater. I mean, you're not breaking any state laws.
No,
so,
you are not.
You would just be asked to leave, right?
But if you are asked to leave or if you are asked to disarm yourself and then come back, you are obligated to do either of those two things.
Right.
Or you can be arrested for trespassing.
And I've been in that predicament, by the way, faced with trespassing charges if I didn't leave, which I left, but not for that reason.
Private property trumps just about everything. And I don't particularly like saying this, but it trumps the Second Amendment. Private property is king. And if a private property owner says, I don't want guns on my property, you have to respect that, or else you're going to suffer the consequences. And the property owner has the law on their side.
See, and Joe and I, again, we're talking about this. I don't have a problem with that. If there's a restaurant that says absolutely no firearms allowed on the premises, good for you. I hope you just go. I mean, let the people go. I wouldn't visit that establishment personally. If that's what they want to do, let them do it. And
well, that's just it. And you had a gentleman on your Friday program, NRA instructor from West Virginia.
Yes.
Called in, and guy was right, spot on. He was making some very good points, and he left it up to the individual as to whether you choose to disobey the wishes of a private property owner, and it is your choice to make. I choose if I want to go somewhere that I have the right to be, I will go I will go armed, and I will be protected, and I will protect those around me in case anything happens. I will deal with the consequences later, but I will be alive to deal with them.
That's the key right there. Yes, exactly.
And
yeah.
I told Joe kind of in jest that I was going to do this today, but I went ahead and did it. I sent an email to Corporate Cinemark.
Good.
Expressing my deepest condolences for the incident at their theater, and then I posed the question, how many would have been saved had one weapon carrier disobeyed your rule? And I left it at that. Interesting way
to frame that. Condolences, but right on the money. I agree. I agree that one person such as yourself, adept at firearms and carrying a concealed weapon, may have made the difference. Of course, perhaps not. But
I might have gone down.
Yep.
He might have got me before I got him, but I went down with a fighting chance.
There you go, and that's the big difference. Well, John, we've got to move on, but any last closing comments or any thoughts?
Protect yourself. You never know what's going to happen, when or where.
Right.
That's it. Just and you had mentioned during your program Friday, be aware of your surroundings. Situational awareness is the sixth sense that we all need to develop and nurture and perfect.
That's going to come more into play as time goes on, and I've got some things to share that Rick Wiles shared with me off air today that I'm going to get into a little bit later. But John, I want to thank you for that. Now, for the listeners unfamiliar with you, give out your tell us about your program and give out your website where they can listen.
We are on most Saturday nights, and Doug, I know you at the end of your program Friday, you plugged our program. Unfortunately, there was no program on Saturday night. Everybody was out of town doing the family thing.
Okay.
So, and that was kind of a last minute. We didn't really know what was going on. But anyway, we are normally on Saturday nights, 6 o'clock Eastern until 9 o'clock p.m. Our website is braveheartradio.net, and you can pick us up there as far as where to listen. There's a listen link on the page that will direct you to the site of the person that carries our show over the internet. Again, it's braveheartradio.net.
Well, and folks, it's a program very worth listening to. John, you're a good host. You're knowledgeable. You're informed, and you are a true patriot. And we want to thank you for all that you do. We are, folks, under the umbrella of Team K9. We're going to be, really putting a listing of shows that they're must listens. And of course, this is one. John, God bless you. Thank you so much for calling in.
God bless you guys, and right back at you. Good job. Keep it up, and thanks for having me on.
All right, buddy. You take care now.
Take
folks,
care. Bye-bye.
That was John from from BraveheartRadio.net, BraveheartRadio.net, Saturdays 6 to 9. Interesting program. Good to listen to. Good patriots, and I guess Joe, he
yeah, some good insight there.
Took a piece of you today, right?
Well, no, he just was kind of venting about things in general, and I was just the one to be on the other end of the phone. Like I said, there was nothing directed at me, but he was definitely upset. Just another piece of information here before we finish with talking about this Colorado affair. Colorado news from the Denver Post: real-life shooting imitates training exercise at Parker Medical School.
Isn't that interesting?
The tragedy that played out in Aurora movie theater Friday night was ironically paralleled as a classroom learning experiment in a medical school in Parker the same day. Rocky Vista University College of Osteopathic Medicine is in the middle of holding specialized classes in disaster life support for 150 second-year medical students, along with a response to natural disasters like hurricanes and floods and terrorist attacks. One of the scenarios being used to train the students is how to respond if a shooter fires at people in a movie theater and also uses a bomb in the attack.
Yes.
The irony is just amazing, said Rocky Vista Dean Dr. Bruce Dubbin. And so many, I'm not going to read the rest of the article, there's not much more there. So many of these acts that happened, 9/11, 7/7, many more, had drills of the exact same things happening at the exact same times they were happening.
Well, this kind of does not necessarily fit that mold of the 7/7 or 9/11, where this. It's interesting that this took place at the time and but it doesn't fit the mold where it involved real life police at a movie theater. It's hype operation, whereas 7/7 did. That meaning the tube bombings in London.
The article does go on to say they are trained to respond in every type of disaster. The shootings in Aurora were incorporated into the teaching Friday.
Right. Now again, but okay. For example, on 7/7, the training exercises were the field exercises involving the first responders, the police. This was a closed classroom type of event. But what really in that same category, I've got for official use and information only on May 17th of 2012, DHS put out, or the FBI put out a warning or a memo that to watch out for shooting incidents at theaters. Okay, now this.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that? So,
yeah.
I mean, so you're talking May 17th, and so June, July, roughly 60 days in advance. Now, Mike, the question about this is, what did they know in advance, perhaps, or was this just a lucky guess? I don't buy that. I know that there's always been talk about schools being a target by Muslim terrorists, for example. And we've got information about that as well, folks, that there are things being set up here in Islamic mosques that will come out. But we'll get into that later. But so it's interesting. Yeah, the prelude to this shooting.
Okay, now callers who are on hold, stay there. We're going to come to you on the other side of the break. I'm going to play the audio of this interview on BBC. Once that's over, you can take us out on a break.
Okay, we'll do.
And then I'll bring us back with the 1-minute clip on why we have the Second Amendment.
Sounds good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We're going to play a clip from BBC interviewing an anti-gun control advocate. And on the other side of the break, we're going to be playing a 1-minute clip on why we have the Second Amendment, taking your calls and more. Stay tuned.
Well, let's go to Nashville, Tennessee now, because John Loss is there, an academic and writer, also an anti-gun control advocate. John Loss, thank you very much indeed for your time. What do you say to people who believe there should be greater gun control in the United States?
Well, you can look around the world. Europe obviously tends to have much more gun control than the United States does, and yet on a per capita rate, the rate of multiple victim public shootings in Europe is similar to what we see in the United States. But I think most telling here is that where the attack occurred, as where all these other attacks seem to occur, and that is it took place in an area where guns were banned. The movie theater had signs up that said law-abiding citizens were not allowed to legally take their guns in there. And what you do when you have those types of bans is that rather than stopping these attacks from occurring, you unintentionally make them magnets for attacks. Just think of it this way. Suppose a violent criminal was stalking you or your family, was really seriously threatening you. Would you feel safer putting a sign up in front of your home that said this home is a gun-free zone? Would it make it less likely the criminal would come in to attack, or more? And I think most people realize that what you're telling this armed criminal is that he has less to worry about if he goes in there and attacks you in your home, because there's no way you're going to be able to defend yourself.
But in terms of these mass killings, surely gun control, having a gun, simply makes it easier to perpetrate a crime like that. That's a simple fact, surely.
That's exactly true. Having a gun does make it easier to go and kill people, but having a gun also makes it easier for you to stop those attacks from occurring. The problem is that when you ban guns, who obeys the law? It's the law-abiding good citizens, not the person who's going to go and commit a crime. It's a perfect example with this case. Guns were banned from this movie theater. All the law-abiding citizens in that movie theater obeyed the law, even though about 5% of the adult population in Colorado has a permit to legally carry a concealed handgun. No one in the movie theater broke the law who was a law-abiding citizen.
It is undoubtedly true. It is undoubtedly true, surely, that most of these events are not prevented by individual citizens having guns. You don't get an individual citizen shooting a shooter in return.
They don't have to shoot. A lot of these attacks have been stopped. The Appalachian Law School in Virginia.
But by law enforcement officers?
No, by civilians. By civilians. It doesn't get much. About a quarter of the public school shootings in the United States have been stopped by citizens carrying concealed handguns before the police arrived. Look at the very first of these public school shootings in Pearl, Mississippi. It was in October 1997. It was stopped by a vice principal there at the school, a guy named Joel Myrick, who had a permit to carry a concealed handgun. Paducah, Kentucky, Santee, California, other places. You have multiple victim public shootings at the big mega church a few years ago.
Okay, listen, I take your point. Tell me if you think it would be too much of an infringement of people's civil liberties if there were security checks in almost all public venues, say sporting venues, cinemas, public transport. Would that be too much for people to take?
Well, you're not going to solve the problem. When you have somebody who can go and plan this for 4 months, as this person did, they're going to find ways around these types of things. You can ban guns, you can do other types of things that could also affect civil liberties, but you have to realize that when you're talking about a large venue like that, there are going to be so many possible ways for somebody to go in. You know, in this case, the guy was able to come in through locked emergency doors in the back. And the question is, there's so many possible entrances, it's very difficult for somebody who's planning in advance to go and offer that type of protection.
So how do you solve the problem? Is it more a societal issue about why people carry it out rather than how they carry out attacks like this?
Well, let me give you one simple fact, and that is if you look at all the multiple victim public shootings in the United States from the end of World War II till now, that's involved more than 3 people killed except for one attack, has all occurred in gun-free zones. All but one. That means, you know, and so what you're having to ask yourself is why are all these attacks occurring in places where guns are banned? It's not by accident when you have all but one of all these attacks that you can think of. You name an attack in which more than 3 people have been killed, and with one exception, they've all taken place in areas where guns are banned.
All right.
How is that random?
John Lott, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us from Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow. That was an incredible clip. Wow, that was incredible.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, we're going to go to a break, and on the other side of the break, your calls. Folks, you're listening to a Monday edition, July 23rd, 2012, of the Hagmann and Ahgmann Report. We want to thank you very much for taking your time to spend your Monday with us. Stay with us.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your #1 priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilena Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Doug Hagmann, one guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Our founding fathers gave us the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. And we got these idiots in Congress saying, well, you don't need a machine gun to go duck hunting. Well, you would get a lot of ducks, but the Second Amendment is not so we can go duck hunting. The Second Amendment is so we can protect ourselves from our government if they go bad. What if the government goes bad? Who's going to stop them? That's what the Second Amendment's about. Now, folks, you see, a lot of animals that eat grass have horns. You don't need horns to eat grass, do you? See, the problem is, he's just trying to eat the grass, but the lion keeps jumping on his back. And so the horns are to help educate the lion to stay off his back so he can eat the grass. That's what the horns are for. It's an educational tool. And I don't think we need guns to go kill everybody. We need guns to educate other folks. Leave me alone. Don't break into my house. Don't hurt my wife. Don't hurt my kids. Don't steal my stuff. Stay out of my house. I believe in gun control. Gun control is being able to hold it steady and hit the intended target. That's gun control. We practice it all the time at our place. Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. First hour, we were talking about the incident shooting that took place in Colorado and all the different reports and anomalies that are came along with that shooting. And we are going to go back to the phone lines. Right before the end of the break, we played a clip of what the Second Amendment really is for, and as the gentleman in the video said, it is not for hunting. It is to protect ourselves against tyrannical governments. And as you see a tyrannical government forming, what is it going to try to do? What do we see it doing? Trying to disarm the people. Why would a government want to disarm the people when the people, the majority of people, have the arms to protect themselves? Well, the government is criminal, and they want to take your life over through murder. I mean, just look throughout history at the dictators, Nazis, the communist leaders who took guns, disarmed the people. What followed? Mass death. So we need to look no further than history as to why, we should not disarm the people. And with that, we will be going to the phones. All right, let's see. We got, I think, Vernon. You're on with the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Oh, God bless everyone. How's everyone doing this evening?
God bless you, Vernon. We're doing fine. Glad to have you on board. What's on your mind tonight?
Doug, you know that with the sidearm issue, or the weapon issue, period, I was listening to the other gentleman, and I commend him. He's a marksman but very few people who has a gun permit have training. A lot of people, now I'm in Philadelphia. I remember back in, I believe, in the late 70s, early 80s, Philadelphia were giving out gun permits like it was candy.
Oh, yeah. Here too.
Okay. But now all you did, if you didn't have a police record, you didn't have a mental health issue, you got a gun permit. Now, there was no training in a lot of cases that were involved. Now, I'm ex-military. I'm ex-military police. When I came out the military, I had, worked in the field in a small capacity where I had to carry sidearms. I know how to handle a weapon. My name is not Wide Earp. You have a gentleman coming in, fully body armor, okay? I was trained in the military to shoot for the widest part of the body.
Center mass,
okay.
That's right.
Okay? You're not trained to shoot for the arm, the leg, or, even that lucky shot between the eyes. The average person don't even have that kind of training. So now what happens is, if you pull out a weapon, even though you have a permit to carry, and you shoot at the assailant, and you miss that assailant, and you hit an innocent bystander, one of the people that you're supposed to be trying to protect, you're going to have just as much charges on you as the assailant. That's number one. I'm not talking against guns because it is just like with the police officer that's in uniform opposed to a police officer that's out of uniform, that's on duty, plain clothes, that uniform is a deterrent. Allegedly, it's supposed to be a deterrent.
Correct.
From crime. Okay, from crime. Having a sidearm, and most people, I got a gun. First of all, folks, the gun or the weapon is a false sense of security. Because if somebody get a drop on you, what you're going to do is, excuse me, I have to go, let me reach in my back and pull out my 9mm here. They got the drop on you. Okay? There's a lot of things that has to be, weighed out here. In other words, now, like I said, I'm for everyone being armed as a deterrent. But I'm for everyone being highly trained, not only how to use the weapon, but how the safety of a weapon, which is very important, and also the law and the use of that weapon. With that said, okay, now we have a government that's running amok, that's completely corrupt. And like the gentleman said, the only people out there that's going to give up their guns are law-abiding citizens. Well, folks, there is no more law. If you look at it, if you seriously look at it, there is no more law. Okay? Now, for me, I don't want a permit. I've had permits of different levels, but a 24-hour permit I never had. And I had a lieutenant on the Philadelphia Police Department that was going to get me my permit to carry. I told him I don't want one. And he said, why? I said, think about it. That permit is only a permit for you to carry, not a permit for you to use it. If you end up using it, you have to prove, you have to prove that you were legally justified in using that sidearm. Okay? If you can't prove that, you're going to have a whole lot of charges up on it. Okay?
Yeah, but Vernon, if you get stopped without a concealed carry permit and you're carrying a weapon, you're going to have quite a few charges levied against you as well in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So, I mean, why not take the permit?
Well, first of all, if I'll be 60 years old. I got gray hair. What police officers will stop me?
Well,
on the average level. I mean,
or stop you and frisk you. I understand that, but you're still taking a chance. But okay, all right.
Yeah, you're taking a chance. Okay, but then again, you're taking a chance by getting that permit and end up in a situation where, and again, if you're not a very good shot in that particular situation, like in Colorado, and you miss and you hit the wrong person, you have problems anyway. At least with me, without a permit. If I was to carry a sidearm without a permit, and I said if I were to carry a sidearm,
right?
Keyword if.
Right.
If I were to carry one without the permit in the state of Pennsylvania with no criminal background, okay, clean record, and then I have a background in military police. I have a background in very sensitive security areas, okay. They would look at me, slap me on the wrist, send me on about my way.
If you got the shooter.
No, I'm talking about this is without, an incident. I'm walking down the street, I got a permit, somebody spotted, police pulled me over. What's wrong with it? Hey, look at my age, man. Who I'm gonna fight? Now, about your business, okay? And then I know a lot of cops in Philadelphia, so I know a few names to call. All right, but outside of that, to me, having a permit is fruitless. It really is.
I agree. I don't think you should have concealed carry permits, open carry permits. I think
carries, you don't need a permit for open carry.
Well, I got to find the quote, but there's a quote that I think it was either Thomas Jefferson or James Madison said that it is not only a right but a duty of the citizen of America to be armed at all times. I saw that quote today, and if I find it, I will post it.
Please send it to me.
But what's your aversion, seriously, aside from, I mean, what's your aversion to having a permit, concealed weapons permit, with your background and training? I mean, it would make things, especially the 33 state permit that you can have now, Well,
no, let me say it this way, if I can. If we had a government that was on the up and up, if we had a government that wasn't trying to strip us of our rights to bear arms so that they would not have that much resistance to what they're trying to do, okay, I would sit up here and say, yeah, go ahead and get a permit. But first, tell every state, before you issue that permit, and after you do the background investigation, every person must be trained.
Okay.
The average person that's getting a gun permit right now, they don't even know how to load it.
Right.
Let alone the safety.
But Ron, I'm addressing you, though, okay? Is it that you just don't want your name to be on a list, perhaps? Or, because there have been occasions where weapons permits...
Yeah, too late. My name was probably on 20 lists.
Well, yeah.
But, they know who's who. They do.
Okay.
Okay, because the moment you go to the store and you sign up to buy a weapon legally, okay, you have what, a 7-day waiting period.
For handguns, it varies by state, I believe, but okay.
It does. I think Pennsylvania just now, even in recent years, even for a shotgun, whereas before you can go walk into the shotgun, buy a shotgun, and take it home that day. But I think you have a 7-day waiting period even now for that.
I'm not in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure. I thought I can go in and buy an AR-15, walk out of Gander Mountain with one the same day. I'm not sure now. But okay.
No, I'm almost certain. It's been quite a few years since I had to buy one.
Okay.
But once you buy a weapon from a store, you have a record right there. Okay.
Yep.
You go for a permit. You have fingerprints. You've been ID'd. They already know who you are, and you're already on a list.
Yeah. And that's illegal. What really needs to I'm just so against any form of gun control that the technicalities of debating carry, open carry versus concealed permit versus the right to even buy a gun, unless you have exhibited yourself to be a violent, unstable, but by being violent and unstable and having a criminal record and such, you should have no problem buying a gun, carrying a gun in this country. There should not be any laws restricting the ability to travel with guns. There should be no law restricting. I mean, I guess you could say open carry, concealed carry. I can understand. Everybody should be allowed to open carry without a permit, without a registration. You should be able to buy guns without.
We have a politer society too.
What?
We have a politer society.
Right. I mean, like the semantics between carrying concealed versus to get the permit versus just buying a gun to have at your house for self-defense is garbage. The Founding Fathers gave us the Second Amendment so we could have arms. It didn't say you could only have arms if you were allowed to be registered and you kept them in your house. It didn't say you could only have arms if you weren't going to carry them around with you. It said you have the right to have a gun, and that's point blank, period. And that right shall not be infringed. So any discussion beyond that is unconstitutional, really, and a violation of our rights as Americans.
What Constitution?
The Constitution that really doesn't exist.
Yeah, the one that don't exist now. Okay,
right.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. We don't have a law. Okay, so why are we so busy trying to be law-abiding?
Exactly.
Interesting.
But at the same point, I mean, obedience. Somebody posted this in the chat room. Obedience or resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. That's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. But I agree. Everybody should be armed. Everybody should be ready to defend themselves because look at the world we live in. And for anybody to argue, that it is bad for you to have guns for self-defense, such as the New York Times and Bloomberg, you shouldn't have guns even for self-defense. These people are just pushing the globalist, wacko, communist agenda. Go read what the great tyrannical murderous leaders wrote about gun control, and you have your answer right there.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go one just a little bit better. Who was it that was standing beside Jesus Christ out of the Garden of Gethsemane when they was picking him up and took his sword and sliced off the ear of a soldier? Was that Peter? That was the gun of that day. That was the weapon of that day.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay.
That's an interesting way to look at things. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Wow.
You are charged. I mean, not so much myself I'm worried about. I'm not worried about me. But when I take my wife out, I want to ensure that she's safe. I can't cop a good run when my wife is with me. I have to stand my ground.
And can you ensure she's safe without yourself being protected?
Well, yeah,
I can't ensure that. I can't ensure that because the police is outgunned.
Right.
The police are outgunned.
Yeah.
Okay? So now I got a little bean shooter going against somebody that got an AR-15 and a 9.
Yeah, that's true.
And a shotgun.
But still, Vernon, I mean, you still have to have,
As somebody in the chat room said, ask David how deadly a slingshot is
to Goliath.
Right.
Yeah.
But
it's still a weapon. It's still a weapon.
Interesting. Well,
all right, Vernon, is there anything else? We got a bunch of other people on hold we're going to get to.
Just basically, I just want to say that, it's a sad thing that happened. It truly is a sad thing, and prayers go out to the families of the victims and to all Coloradans, prayers go out for you. And just know that we're in your corner. We're in your, you're in our hearts. I'll put it that way.
Thanks, Vernon. Very well said.
Thanks for your call, Vernon.
God bless all.
God bless you.
All right. Thank you, Vernon. We are going to move on to a caller from Colorado. You're on the air with the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello, Joe. Hello, Doug.
Hello there.
Hey, Don.
Yeah,
how's it going?
No, it's going as well as it can down here. One of the things, I didn't get to hear the beginning of the show, but my wife briefed me a little bit of some of the things that you said, said. There's one correction that I need to make on something that was said earlier by John about Obama wasn't here for the fire, the Waldo Canyon fire. He was here. He had graced us with his glorious appearance. And then also he was here in Aurora on Sunday for a press conference as well.
Right, but with the fire, I believe what John was referring to. I don't think it was. I think that was a pre-scheduled visit to the Denver area. That did he specifically go to?
Oh yeah, he specifically came down for the fire. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
He had to show how he was so interested and so caring about the fire, which is a load of garbage, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, which we're looking at the fires too, and someone in the chat room, God bless her, had sent me some information. I want to look into certain aspects of those fires. I'm still troubled by that. I did. This is all part of it. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So what questions do you have for me that maybe I can clarify things on or add to? Or
you guys said in the chat that this the mall or this movie complex had police that were stationed there regularly at night.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to. Now we listen to Alex Jones as well as you on a regular basis, and he had a gentleman on there who was a retired police officer for Denver, and he was a SWAT team member. And he said that particular theater, he said, on a regular basis has at least 4 to 5 police officers in there on every night. And on premieres or anything like that, there's usually more than that. Well, it's a 16 theater complex. so it's a multi-theater. And so there's always a police, unmarked, plainclothes police presence all the time there. Well, this particular day, according to this police chief of Aurora, who's from New York City, there were no police there that day. Now, tell me that doesn't sound like a setup. Every other day there is, but that day there wasn't any. I don't buy it.
Okay, I have to. So what you're saying now? Were they told not to come in? Were they?
We don't know. We don't know.
But
the same police officer was on the force at the time the thing down at Columbine went down, and he was a SWAT member in that whole thing, and he was told to stand down during the Columbine thing.
Wow.
And he is even saying that there were people that were, SWAT people that were shooting, that had been some of the ones that shot the students, and that the Black Ops team had planted about 127 propane tanks. And there's no way that Klebold and his cohort could have planted that many propane tanks all over the school and not had them noticed.
Okay, to what end now are we talking here? What not with the latest shooting, but with Columbine here.
Right.
What are you telling me? What are you telling us about this?
Well, that was totally a Black Ops setup as well. And they keep dredging up Columbine. See, this whole thing is all conveniently happens to coincide with, of course, this thing that's going on with the EU and the treaty and the Second Amendment, and it's all coinciding with that. And it really, really has a real appearance that they're trying to push very, very hard to literally get the public to beg for gun control because, guns are so bad they kill people. And, that's honestly what it looks like. And I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more similar instances until Obama gets his way and they get to sign that. And what I understand right now is there are 2 congressmen that are holding out and will not sign that and will not allow it to go into effect. But how long that's going to last, I don't know.
Yeah, just so we're clear on the semantics portion of it, it appears that America is going to be we're going to be a signatory to this arms trade treaty, but you're talking about ratification of the treaty.
Right, they will not ratify it at all. These 2 senators will not sign on to the ratification of it at all. So Obama's going to have to do one of his pull the rabbit out of the hat, routines where he totally disregards the Constitution and, just writes it, in and says he's going to enforce it.
Okay.
And Clinton did the same thing during the time of Columbine. That happened to be, there was an issue of a gun treaty or some kind of a gun thing for the Second Amendment that was coming up during the time of that as well.
That was the assault weapons ban.
So you put 2 and 2 together, and it looks pretty suspicious.
Okay, you make a good point. That when Columbine took place back in 1999, that was around I think it was the same time or close to the same time as the assault weapons ban was being bandied about there, which has expired. Which now I can see where we've got the reinstitution perhaps of the assault weapons ban as well, which is improperly worded, folks. I understand that, as well as this arms trade treaty. And it's amazing, too, Calderon from Mexico, I don't know whether you saw his statements, but made some statements about how that we America needs stronger gun control, which is amazing to hear from a Mexican president. But okay, but understandable with Fast and Furious. But it's not the civilians; it's the government. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's fine. But anyway, it just has the appearance that it's all very conveniently laid out. Part 1 of the plan, part 2 of the plan, and they implement as they go along. And also, I understand too, the day before the shooting. Of course, the shooting was at 12 o'clock, in the morning of the next day. But that day before that shooting, there was a drill at DU, and it happened to be exactly almost a carbon copy of what actually went down at the theater.
You're talking about the med or the yeah, we talked about that. Joe mentioned that. Rather interesting timing as well. Curious timing.
Mm-hmm. And then go back to May, and May 17th there was an FBI memo that came out describing how the people would really have a heck of a time if there was a shooting in a theater, and it pretty much described the entire thing of how it could happen and how somebody could do it, and talk about it sounding like a blueprint for what happened in Aurora. Come on now.
Well, it would take it's estimated to have taken the Holmes that long, perhaps beginning in May, June, after he was let go or after he left school to get things done. So you're right, the timing is certainly suspicious.
And where did a guy that doesn't have a job have the money to come up with enough money to buy 6,000 rounds of ammunition?
Yeah, I can't afford
online. Now the guns were bought legally and locally. They were bought in the Denver metro area and Aurora area. One of them was at the Bass Pro Shops, which I've been to. And it's a very nice store, and they do everything totally legal. Everything he did, he got all the weapons in the legal manner.
Well, from what I understand, he had grants. He had his ability of science. I know he was unemployed, but being a college student, going for a PhD in neuroscience, I think it is. You get some money if you fill out your papers right with college. You get money back. Now, him dropping out of that next semester, who knows if he got his grant money for a semester and decided to keep it for what he was planning instead of books and other things. I mean, that's a possibility.
Sure.
Interesting.
It's just real interesting. And then where did he get all the knowledge to go and build these supposed bombs that are supposedly in his apartment?
Yeah, I received probably 5 or 6.
I don't buy that either, because he would have to have learned that or been trained in that. And okay, let's just say speculatively that he was trained in because of mind control, and he was actually trained in all that stuff. And when it was called upon, he implemented it. Okay, well, I could possibly see that, but otherwise, if it has the level of sophistication that it does, he would have had to have been somebody who was in munitions or trained specially, like special forces type people would do, to be able to rig something that elaborate.
Do you believe? And this is something Joe and I were talking about. Do you believe that it's possible, and this is outside of the box, but maybe it's not that far outside of the box. Do you believe MK Ultra type thing, mind control, where this guy was because of the Neuroscience Association?
Oh, I totally do. Absolutely. Because, the Department of Defense funds the neuroscience program, first of all.
That's
90% of it.
Yes.
And if you go online and type in Project Monarch, you can get a whole rundown of what Project Monarch is, and it is a mind control program that's been in existence, I think, since the Korean War, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it's been implemented successfully for many, 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 many years. And all they have to do is use a trigger word that triggers them into this pseudo-personality, if you will, where they'll do as they're told to the letter. And, where did he get smoke bombs, smoke grenades, military issue style tear gas? Where did he get that? That doesn't make sense either. I mean, you just can't go to your local corner and buy it, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. There's too many things that don't make sense about this. And they let it slip out that a couple of the people had reported that there was somebody else in the front row that had gotten up, went over to that side door, and opened the door, and then came back and sat down in his seat. And a few minutes later, the gunman came in. So that tells you that there were 2 people involved in it, not one. And they shut all that down here, and they're not talking about it here. They're not saying anything more about, oh, gosh, there was a second person. Now all of a sudden it's just this one guy and only that one guy that did anything.
I've seen reports that a second person was picked up and questioned, but let go because there was no connection to the shooter. But I agree that it is suspicious and that definitely second person needs to be looked into, as there was reports of tear gas coming from places where the shooter could not have thrown them himself, as reported by multiple witnesses who were in the theater that night. As we continue to look into this, I'm sure much more explosive evidence will come out, as it usually does in these cover-up operations.
Yeah, it's interesting because the mother of James Holmes says she didn't tell ABC her son was a killer. She's suggesting that ABC News mischaracterized her statement, that there's, and I look, even in that emotional state that she would probably be in, you're not going, I would suspect that you would remember saying, kind of acquiescing or kind of, saying, he's a killer. So, yeah, there's obviously manipulation of the media going on. Now, you being in the area, do you have a Channel 9 or Channel 7 there? I'm trying to...
Yeah, we see Channel 9 only through the affiliate station in Colorado Springs. We don't actually see 9 itself. They've been pretty good about, when they did the coverage here, they were showing all the 9 News coverage as well as having their, their own local news people up there as well.
Did you see the initial report, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, that they named the shooter as a Muhammad Alam?
I never heard that one.
Yeah, there was an initial report. I've got to find it in my notes here. That they actually named the shooter, and then they said, "Whoops, we're sorry." It was, where they got the name is unknown. But
really.
Yeah. In fact,
doesn't it make you wonder if maybe there was more than one shooter in that theater?
Certainly.
I mean, with all the pandemonium going on there, nobody'd ever know, and nobody could identify him with the gas mask on, the helmet on, the flak vest, and all the stuff that he had on. Nobody could identify him. I mean, he could have just, for all we know, been the patsy that was all drugged up, and they just happened to have him sitting in the car outside when the police conveniently show up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I buy it. And the other thing is too, there were military in there from Buckley Air Force Base in Denver.
Inside the theater?
Yeah, inside the theater. The other thing I find suspicious too, concealed carry permits, in Colorado are a pretty common thing, and there have been a lot of people that have them. And why is it that nobody that was in there with a concealed carry permit that would have been able to possibly taken the shooter out if being fired upon? I don't buy that either. I mean, there's too many things that do not add up.
Yeah, there's a lot that doesn't add up. And just let me back up here. The reports Colorado Movie Theater in this 9 News released this statement that Muhammad Alam was the shooter, and then they had said, "Whoops, we fell victim to a hoax." So that doesn't add up because there's just a lot wrong with that whole hoax deal in the wording of this. And in fact, I think somebody sent me a screen capture of the report that contained the screen capture of this report. But anyway, okay, very good, very good stuff.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we let you go?
Well, there's one other thing too that this is not related, and it is, and it is, and it isn't. A few years ago, one of the supposed terrorists that was captured was also captured in Aurora as well, and was living there in Aurora.
Which one? What are you referring to?
Well, there was him and his dad. I guess what was it? I can't remember the name.
I mean,
he and his dad were both involved in it.
Terrorists for what? For 9/11 or?
Yeah, the guy that I think that tried to do a bomb. What was it, New York or some darn thing? And his dad was living here in Colorado, and he lived in Colorado too, and went to New York, and you know the one I'm talking about?
Yes.
I can't remember the guy's name.
It was on the periphery.
And they were from Aurora as well. So I mean, what's the deal with Aurora? I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well,
I don't know. It's a big cluster. You know what I mean?
Thanks for not finishing that phrase, but
I wouldn't.
no, it is indeed. But all things that you mentioned, we're going to keep looking at this because, and again, this is part of our silence. We haven't really issued anything because we're still looking at certain things. There's just, like you said, a lot of things don't add up. So we need to really be very careful. And now some of our sources too are saying, well, look, it is what it is, but I'm not buying a lot of this. It is what it is stuff. So.
Well, thanks for your call, Don. We're going to let you go. We got some other information to hit. We appreciate your information, and feel free to call in anytime. Thank you so much.
All right, you gentlemen, thank you for what you do, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
God bless.
Thanks.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
But before we take any more calls, you had mentioned at the beginning of the show, now we are almost at the end of the show, surprisingly. Yeah, it is incredible. Time went so fast today. Really just talking about this Colorado shooter, and we have so much other news we need to get to. But first and foremost, people are asking for it. What did you and Rick Wiles talk about today?
Well, on air you can listen to it at True News, but off air we were talking about, and this is something that I, back in May, Rick. Now I'm not. If Rick is listening to this, we're not going to get into certain areas here, only because it adds nothing and it just violates privacy. So I'm not going to get into certain things. But back in May, they had a meeting of the watchmen, shall we say, and everyone's kept in touch, and there have been people close to Rick Wiles that have been sending him, and people that he knows personally. There have been people, and ladies and gentlemen who are listening to this program, I don't know if you're into this, if you fit this or not, but there seems to be this huge increase in the amount of people having dreams at night. Now, I know this sounds really weird, okay? Look, as a person that deals in the here and now, the real stuff every day, me being a linear thinker, I can relate to this a little bit. People are having dreams, and some of the correct me if I'm wrong in the pronunciation, intercessors?
Intercessor.
Okay, right. Are having dreams, and people that have had dreams in the past, their dreams are increasing, and they all take the same tact. They all have the same type of. They're all similar, and these are people that don't know each other that are reporting in that have the same information, and the dreams are as such. They are dreaming about the holiday time, perhaps around Thanksgiving, maybe even Christmas, but more than likely Thanksgiving, where the people are watching football. They see a holiday meal, perhaps turkey, for example, on the table. And there's just a lot of riots, chaos, bloodletting in the streets, civil riots, dead people, dead Christians being hunted. And this is all pre-election. Now, bear in mind, we don't know. We know the year. We don't know the time of year. We know, according to these people who are having these dreams. And that's in other dreams, including massive brown grass, trees dead, fish dead, animal deaths. People are having these dreams. And again, people that don't know each other, who Rick talked to, he'll talk to one person in the morning, and then 5 minutes later get a call and said, "Hey, look, I just had this dream." Now, look, I'm not.
Well, let me share this. It's not uncommon But for so many people to be having the same kind of dreams, I think I've talked about them on air before. I know I've talked to them, to a few people who listen, and to you. I've had multiple dreams, on multiple nights of this same dream of there being a complete collapse of society, anarchy in the streets. The streets are ruled by gangs. You have to, right. Tunnel from house to house or crawl from house to house and stealth to get by. And in every dream, I'm looking for bullets and can never find them. And it wasn't just one dream. This was 3 or 4 dreams over a period of nights.
Okay.
So, I mean, and people in the chat room are saying the same thing. Certain ones have had kind of dreams. And I know from talking to them previously, who they've told me they've had these dreams.
Well, to me, this is disturbing. I mean, and again, to hear, I don't do justice to the way Rick Wiles has told it and tells it, even to the extent of having people going house to house looking for Christians. He was talking about that kind of stuff. But again, and a total collapse of society, and also there was emphasis on people not being able to buy food, the money system going down. A lot of this is money, and he said the evil behind this is so bad that Russia and China, for example. I mean, to take it a little bit further into the going from a dream to a vision, or going into beyond the normal dreams. Some people have even reported where Russia and China had to come to the rescue, if you will. And again, the phrases are off, but to put a stop to what's taking place in America, and when you've got that level of evilness in this nation, where Russia and China have to intervene, holy cow! Where are we at? But also, people dreaming of the heads of government, current heads of government, being there's signs of them being evil, and I won't get into the various signs, but just think about it, okay? The eyes, people with hollowed out eye sockets type thing, really strange things. And again, these are people unrelated to one another that are reporting this at the same time. But what's alarming is the frequency in which this is happening.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we talked about, too, and I want to get people's thoughts on this. We talked about, for whatever reason, I don't know if I mentioned this during the show or if this is off air, but I didn't know this. The Stuxnet virus, introduced via thumbnail drive, in the Iranian, to stop the Iranian centrifuges. The code name to that is Operation what, Joe? Olympic,
yeah.
Okay, now
and this is what Rick Wiles said in the interview.
now we're talking too about London as well.
Yeah, and that goes with, if you look at the news today, Israel fears Iran will attack the Olympics. Israel says Iran will attack Olympics. Israel steps up its security, and also there is an article about somebody quitting inside the Iranian government because they fear Netanyahu is already decided to attack Iran.
Okay, well, look, I'm not sure, folks. George already asked me to say a few words tonight, or appear in the news segment of Coast to Coast. This is one time I'm not even sure I know what to say, because look at this. Look at what's taking place here. You've got one heck of a build-up. I mean, go back in time, the Illuminati card game, all of this other stuff, talking about the 2012 Olympics, and you've got all of this frivolous, anecdotal, and maybe it's not frivolous, but evidence or suggestive items that have to do with the Olympics. What is this all about? Seriously, what is it? What does this mean?
I've heard a number of theories, some stating from ritual, a sacrifice. You look at the Rockefeller documents where they talk about 13,000 people dying at the Olympics. You look at the connection between the 9th of Av and the opening day of the Olympic ceremonies. You look at the
28th, that's right.
The security holes that were exposed. You look at the propaganda. First it was Al-Qaeda. Now it was going to attack the Olympics. Now it's Iran. If the Olympics are attacked, you can be sure it will be somebody else posing as whoever their enemy is supposed to be, whoever the next war will be launched against, perpetrating these acts, bringing in the propaganda and fake, phony evidence, if they even have any or need any, because in 9/11 they didn't. But an act will be carried out if this is what they plan to do. They'll blame it on Iran if that's who they want to go to war with. They'll blame it on Canada if they're the ones they want to go to war with. It doesn't matter who carried out the act. Their goal is war with a certain country. And the means they go about to get that war does not matter. Probably the more people they kill, doing that, the better in their eyes. This evil you're talking about.
And we do have it on authority, and I was able to verify this, and Rick and I talked about this, 800,000, or 800,000? 800,000? 80,000. I can't read my own notes here, body bags that were ordered.
200,000.
200. Okay. A whole bunch of body bags. And then they're talking about evacuation plans for London as well. Now, again, if the security or the level of preparation leading to such an event is unprecedented, why? Okay, why is this? Why now? Why this? Why in London? Why in 2012? Why are we seeing this?
Well, we are seeing the final provisions or clampdowns of the New World Order consolidating their power to a one world financial, one world political, one world economic, or one world religious system. All three, the financial, political, and religious, one world universal UN Luciferian agenda and order.
So what are we all saying? I mean, folks that are listening to this program, that are interacting with one another, are we saying that, yes, something is going to happen, or this is all just a diversion or a false flag, or not a false flag, but a diversion, or this is all just...
Feelings are mixed.
Okay, because...
People are confused. I'm confused.
Look, I'll be the first one to admit there's something wrong here. I mean, there's a huge...
This is a tactic. This is a tactic. The disinfo inside the truth. Hype. I mean, it could very well be they hype all this up, put all these subliminal conditioning, pre-programming messages into the Olympic Games to get a stir going to where nothing happens. And then next time, something's coming around, you don't look at it as hard as you did last time, and boom, there it goes. But it could be a series of these disinformation campaigns, or this could be the real deal. We just don't know.
And why have all of these military, troops, and of course you've got G4S that they admit that they can't protect the games,
right.
That they can't offer any ground protection, but you're going to have Shin Bet, the Israeli force, or the Israeli.
My question is, with so many people looking at it right now, so much conspiracy theory, so many calls of possible false flag, so many voices saying, if this happens, this is why. Who would be right on the money if it did? How could they go and do it still? Is it that much a control on society?
You're saying, boy, it would be in your face. You know?
I mean, it's already in your face, but this would take it to a whole nother level. This would be like people calling out 9/11 before it happens and them still doing it.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. But I do know, too, and Rick and I were talking about this, where apparently there's some 80-foot statue. The opening ceremonies are satanic, if you will, in satanically crafted, I guess.
Somebody had. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please.
Somebody asked a good question in the chat room. Why do they call it a false flag when it's so real and people die? And that is true. Obviously in false flag, people die. And the sad part about it is that they did not die under the purposes or the reasons given to you by your government and media. They are, we'll take the Nazi Reichstag fire. That was set to in similar fashion like 9/11, and we don't even have to agree who did it. Either way, these acts were done. From these acts brought the Homeland Security, the taking away of liberties for security, alleged security. Now, both can be argued upon that they were committed by people inside the government, whether the government as a whole had knowledge of it or not. People inside the governments definitely did, and they were false attacks on our liberties to take, or false attacks to take our liberties away. Not, in the terminology, false leads you to believe it's not true, but it's just a term given to them.
And here's how I look at a false, when somebody says false flag, here, and this is kind of simple for me because I'm kind of a simple guy. Think of it this way: you're out at sea, you're in a ship, even you could be in a battleship, we'll say, and another battleship with the flag of Libya comes up and starts shooting at you. But the flag, it's a Libyan flag, but we'll say it's a ship from Greece, okay, but flying the Libyan flag. That's where I believe that's even where the term false flag comes in, meaning that whatever entity flying that flag, they're flying the flag of a different entity or country or nation or whatever. So, you're still getting fired at. Yeah, people are still dying, but the flag in which the entity is flying is not the correct flag that's doing the operation. So that's where that is derived from.
So we only have a couple minutes left.
We got 90 seconds left.
We have news. The Marine Corps creates a law enforcement battalions. The Marine Corps has created its first law enforcement battalion, a lean, specialized military police officers it hopes can quickly deploy worldwide to help investigate crimes from terrorism to drug trafficking and terrain fledgling security forces in allied nations. Basically, a domestic military police force for Americans that get out of hand.
Yep, that's correct. And we've got information, the backstory behind that, Joe.
Yeah,
this is not right.
The Anaheim police opened fire on innocent men and women and children, also sick dogs on women and children. There's video of that up at the Intel Hub right now. We were going to get into that, but I guess we'll do that tomorrow.
Yes.
And we want to thank everybody for listening tonight. We want to thank everybody for calling in. We want to thank everybody for the donations and everybody for supporting the show through prayer.
Keeping us on the air.
Keeping us on the air, spreading the word, whatever you're doing. God bless you all. Thanks for listening. I hope you continue to listen. Continue to spread the word because we are growing fast, and it's only because of you. And we love each and every one of you. You got to stay safe. Be aware of your surroundings. And that's all I got. Have a good night.
Yeah, and always be aware of your surroundings. We're entering into a very dangerous time, in my estimation. And I want to say God bless all of you, and thank you for what you do for us, contributing, telling other people about the program. Good night.